that. So everything a little bit on the check. It's okay. Hello.
Check it.
Hello, check. Hello, check. Hello. 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 Honorable guests and beloved students, a very warm welcome and a very big thank you for joining us on such a momentous occasion of our inaugural. I request you to kindly take to your seats and put your mobile phones on silent or flight mode. The President of Geetam, M. Shri Bharat, will address us now.
And metric to not you watch we
Monica. I can get started? Yeah. They've already been announced? Okay. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Audience is very wide, so I can't see all of you at once. Can the Kautilya students raise your hands up, please, so that I can just see you? Okay. It looks like our faculty is still very busy eating snacks and they haven't come here. That's fine. I think they'll join in, we'll get started. And family and friends of Kautilya, of the founders of the faculty, can you raise your hands, please? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I don't know if I think there's some problem with this. Hello? Yeah. Maybe I'll take out the mask. Friends and family of Kautilya, can I see you, please? Hands? Mostly in the front row. Okay. So I think I'll spend about... there's some static coming. Can you just... I don't have a mobile with me. The mic's here. It's not touching anything. తీసేనా? అది ఆఫ్ చేసేయండి. Hello? This is better? Okay, thank you. So I'll spend about 30 minutes, 35 minutes speaking and then I'd like to open it up for questions because Pratik has interacted with you and the admissions team has, and maybe even Syed ji, but I haven't. So I look forward to taking your questions. I'll begin with a brief introduction to myself, my journey, what's brought me here, what's made us establish this school, and then I'll talk about the program, what we have in mind for you, and then I'll take questions after that. So for those of you who don't know much about me, and even for those who do a little, I was born in Hyderabad. I was raised here. I did my schooling until 12th grade, and then I went to the US for my undergrad. And when I came back, this is exactly where I worked. I worked in the Hyderabad campus. I worked in the building of this auditorium and the rest of the Hyderabad campus. But before I get into that story, I want to get into my background and what are the motivations that have made me who I am. I'm 32 years old. I think I'm younger than some of the students in the class. So it's not like I have great pearls of wisdom to give you. But I do have my experiences that I'd like to share. So I was born in a family of businessmen turned politicians / philanthropists. And I'm very close to both sides of my family. Both my grandfathers have been very powerful and strong mentors to me in my life growing up from a very young age. I want to tell you about that journey of mentorship, of support that helped me become who I am, that shaped my thoughts, my identity, my values. I think it's very important as you head out on this journey for you to think about these things. So I'll start off with my mother's side. My mother's side, his name is Dr. K.S. Rao, that's my grandfather. He was born in rural Andhra Pradesh. Born to grew up in a single parent household. His mother passed away when he was 2 years old. He was the first college educated in his family. Went to REC or now NIT Warangal, the first batch, graduated, thought whether he should get into employment or entrepreneurship, chose the path of entrepreneurship, set up a construction company in the early 60s, mid 60s. And he did really well in business for about 20 years. Then thought that now it's time to give back. Got into politics in the mid 80s. Contested for the parliament in 84. Became a member of parliament the first time he contested. And at the time that he contested, he was representing Congress. And there was a wave in Andhra Pradesh of TDP. How many of you have heard of Mr. NTR? Raise of hands. He's the founder of the party that I now belong to. So when he established this party, there was a wave across the state. Out of the 42 MPs, Congress won I think 35 or 36. Sorry, TDP won 35 or 36. Congress won only 6. And in the 6 who won, 4 of them were former chief ministers. My granddad was the only sort of junior, first timer. So it really changed. The experience that he had in those 5 years He became a joint secretary of Congress a year into his term. Really transformative for him as an individual. And I think after that he started scaling back in business, handed it over to his nephew, and then a few years later his son. And he became a full-time politician, set up a trust, started working on upskilling people in the area that he came from. I think they worked on close to 1-2 million people in that time, over the last 3 decades. I was born in 1989. My paternal grandfather, Dr. MVVS Murthy, founder of Geetam, who was president until 2018. When he passed away, that's when I've come into this role. Similar, again grew up in a single parent household. In his case, his father passed away, so a little bit tougher circumstances. Again, first college educated in his family and studied law, practiced in the High Court. Within a year of doing that, I think he decided to get into business. Got into manufacturing and distribution again in the mid-60s and did that for 20 years, very similar trajectory. And in the mid-80s, got into politics, but in TDP, the opposite side. And he didn't contest in 84, he contested for the first time in 89, he lost. In 91 was when he won as a member of parliament representing Visakhapatnam. So I think they've seen a lot of life and they were very busy growing up, so they didn't have time for their children, my father, my mother and their siblings. They were too busy in business, busy in politics, didn't spend time with them. But I think as the oldest grandson in a very patriarchal society, I was given a lot of attention, a lot of time, and had the good fortune of being groomed and mentored by them from a very young age. There were phases, if I can describe those phases. From the age of, let's say 8, when you start realizing things, I started spending a lot of time with my maternal grandfather, who's a congressman. And his way of giving us exposure, beyond obviously spending time with us, was to ensure that we traveled and we saw the world and we saw the country. Being a contractor, he had works across the country. So I think over the last 20 years, I must have visited and spent at least a week or two in 25 of the 29 states and 4 or 5 of the union territories. And that's given me tremendous exposure to what is India and how people are in different parts of the country. And every summer, so this was winters, every summer we travel to different parts of the world. And this is again with my larger mother's side of the family, some of whom will be coming today. We are 8 cousins. My mom has 3 siblings. So the grandparents, 4 children and daughter-in-law, and 8 grandchildren, so about 20 of us, to a different country or a group of countries every year. So from the age of 8 till the age of 20, I think we must have visited about 35, 40 countries and spent about a month in each of them. And again, when we went there, it wasn't like you sit at the hotel and you enjoy the food or anything like that. You actually have to go out in every city that you are in, see the history, see the culture, understand the politics of the place. Again, tremendous exposure. And in spite of being a politician, he made it a point to travel with us at least for 2 weeks in that 1 month period that we were out. And this was very transformative for me because I grew up very comfortably. I didn't have any major challenges. And he used to keep telling us from a very young age that you are all very unlucky. You are unlucky because you do not have a fire in the belly. You do not have any desire to pursue your passion. All of you are very happy being comfortable. So in that sense, you are unlucky. But if you want to make something out of yourself, he used to say that pick any path, pick any career. It need not be what I did. It need not be business. It need not be politics. But whatever you do, try to be the best in it. Try to excel. So that he used to keep repeating it time and again, time and again. So it just got stuck in my head. By virtue of being so close to him, I was obviously inspired by him. And I thought that I should walk in his footsteps, which would mean get into business, earn money, become financially independent, then get into politics. So that's what I thought, that's what I dreamed, that's how I grew up. And very strong-willed person, always had this interest of helping people. And when I became 17 and I needed to decide to go to college, I got into Purdue, which is a university in the US. my paternal granddad didn't want to send me, Dr. Murthy, the founder. So what he did was he got me a seat in Geetham, in Vishakhapatnam. He chose my roommate, who was a topper in ECE, and he said I have to live on campus for 4 years. So I was scared. I was like, being the grandson of the president living on campus is not going to be a good thing for me. But he was a very strong-willed person, and I was always scared of Dr. Murthy because he was sort of like a military general, and whenever we went to Vizag to spend time with him, we used to sneak out in the night to watch movies without his notice. We used to wait until he goes home, goes to his room, and then we used to sneak out. So then suddenly he puts his foot down, and then I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I stuck? But then that's when my father stepped up, and he's like, I'm not going to let my father or father-in-law define your career. I'm going to support you. I'm going to help you go. I think going to Purdue was a transformative experience for me because that's the first time I became independent. I had to wash my own clothes, pay my own bills. I had to be responsible, which I wasn't until the age of 17. And I was very privileged even there. I think whenever I wanted any money, my father gave it to me. So it's not like I had any difficulties, but at least my way of life was very different. And at this point, if you look at me now, I'm about 120 kgs, so I'm fairly heavy. But this is not who I was pre-COVID. COVID has not been very kind to me. I put on about 15 kgs. So in college when I went, I was about 120 kgs then also. And had absolutely no grooming, didn't know what clothes to wear, didn't know how to conduct myself. In the sense that obviously I knew how to speak to friends and things like that, but how to speak to a larger group of people. I was a more shy person, not very good with engaging with people. And that's when my uncle, my maternal uncle, came into my life, and he was my mentor for that period of 3-4 years. He like, as simple as I take this shirt, I come out, I go back to the house. He used to ensure that I take it off, put it on the hanger so that it doesn't get any creases and folds. And this beard is a complete no-no if I'm with him. You need to groom yourself. So that was a very different experience, I think. And in that 4 years, from being someone who's about 120, I worked hard, I enjoyed myself, I lost weight, I reached about 90. For my height, 90 is not bad. And I saw that the way the world was engaging with me became very different. I don't know whether it was that I became confident that I am looking good or that people around me started reacting to me differently. But I started engaging with people in a far more deeper manner, started making more relationships, was going out a lot more. Between 2009 to 2014, I was at almost every event that I was called for. And I used to spend an hour in each event. And people was like, this guy is a social butterfly. And I was the opposite of that until 2008-9. So those 3-4 years of mentoring from my uncle, I think transformed me to actually care about how I dress and how I appear and how I talk, how I act. So that was one kind of mentoring. So 2010 I graduate, I move back, I'm in India. And then I don't know what to do with my life. I know that I want to get into politics one day. I know that I want to get into business, but that's like a 30-40 year horizon. But what do I do today? For many people who want to build a career, they do internships, they build their resume, they make it look good. But I didn't do anything. I just went to college, I didn't even do any internships. I did one maybe for 2 months. And I never had that thing that I have to go chase for a job and get that experience. So when I came back here, I knew that I'm intelligent, I was fairly confident, but I didn't know which job to do. That's when he said, come work here in Geetham and it'll be an experience for you. And that was truly when the mentorship of Dr. Murthy, my paternal grandfather, started. He was a very good boss, a very tough boss. I've worked with some of the members over here. He used to monitor, am I going to campus every day or not? What time am I coming? If I go late, next time I meet him, he used to call me out on it. And anytime I used to ask him anything because there were so many things I wanted to change. Coming from Purdue, where the engineering education is very different from how education here is in India. And he used to say, don't tell me all this, write it on paper and tell me what the problem is and what the solution should be. So I started formalizing my thinking and started looking at problem solving and becoming solution oriented. Otherwise, I was always like an activist, saying that this is wrong, that is wrong. But when you are working within the institution, when you're trying to make institutional change, you can't just do that by complaining about things. You need to understand how things work. And I think when I started, I was 21. I was here until 24. Those 3.5 years, that was the experience that really shaped me, where I was able to channel my energy into a path, into a direction, into steps that I need to do. He was a very sequential person. If I told him that I want to do this, he would write down 20 things that I need to do to get there. So I started thinking like that, which I never did before. I think the exposure that I had until then was more about dreaming and thinking big and things like that, but not actually realizing what is needed to get there. Really enjoyed that time. But in those 3.5 years, I think he was getting a little worried that I was getting too invested into Geetam. And he said, I want you to leave. I got married in 2013 and he said, this is the time for you to get out of Geetam, go build your own business. And I was like, I don't know how to build business. I've been in the university for 3.5 years. And that's when I applied for business school. I was fortunate to get into Stanford. I went there and studied my MBA and MA education. I went there with my wife for 2 years, moved back. The intention was very clear. Be in business, earn money, become something big, be in a position to donate to Geetam. That's when I would come back here. And I came back in 2016. I started working with my father for 2 years. And I didn't enjoy the work. My father was in energy at the time. Work was very slow, dealing with the government, not very motivating. Things move very slowly, a lot of bureaucracy. Decision making isn't clear. And I mean, over the 2.5 year journey, I basically realized that you should not work in businesses where you have only a single client. And if that client is the government, it's even worse, right? Because the government is the biggest gunda in the country. They don't honor any of their contracts. So anyway, but you have to learn. It's like when you're dealt cards, you need to accept those cards. It's not like you can say, I want something else. So I chose it. I started working there, started getting good at it. And in 2018, which was a very pivotal year for me, Dr. Murthy was down with dengue fever, early May, April. And when I met him, he never encouraged me to get into politics. He used to always say that you first earn money. You first become strong. Without becoming strong, you can't help anyone. But then I don't know what happened. I thought he won't make it or what. But when I went and met him and what he perceived to be his deathbed, he said, I want you to move to Visakhapatnam. I want you to get into politics. I want you to contest. This is all very emotional. We didn't know that he was going to live or not. So I didn't commit to anything, didn't say anything. But definitely that impacted me. A few months later, when he recovered, I went and met him and I said, Tata, you said this then. Did you actually mean it? And he said, yes. Then I said, yes, I've decided I'll come. And the minute I say that, then he starts making, again, like I said, that 20-step plan on what needs to be done. And he's like, first thing, you need to get a house. And you need to go live by yourself. You can't live with me. Because the minute you get into politics, you need to build your own identity. You cannot be under my shadow. And I was like, why should we waste money? Why can't I just stay with you? And he's like, nothing doing. You have to get your own house. And then October 3rd, I remember this very clearly. 6 a.m. was my flight. So I should get up at around 4. I didn't get up at 4. I was getting up maybe at 4:30. At 4:15, I get a call. I pick up that call and they tell me that your granddad was in a fatal accident in the US. I was in Alaska at the time, visiting Geetam alumni and traveling, and he took a short break with a group of his friends and they were going in a car. It was actually a caravan, a car which I would not have recommended. And there were 5 people in the car and they got into a head-on collision with a Ford F-150. And 4 out of the 5 passed away. Only 1 survived. The 1 survivor is a governing body member of Geetam and he got 6 or 7 major surgeries, 15 minor surgeries, was on life support for about 3 months in Anchorage, Alaska. Got back, fortunately, got back to India, did physiotherapy here for 2-3 more months and now is able to live I wouldn't say a normal life, but independent life. And he's also a caretaker of our Bangalore campus. And that, I think, really shook us as a family on the father's side because he was still the head, the umbrella under which all of us thrive and flourish. Imagining a life without him was not easy. And this university that he built. It was only 3 grandsons who were on the board as a family. And I was the one who had worked here a little bit longer, had been on the board a little bit longer, was keen to lead. And in that month, the family, the board, and I came into this position. And then I was like, what do I do now? I wanted to get into politics. And now I don't have my mentor who's going to guide me in politics. And I have this large university that I have to lead. What do I do? Do I enter politics or not? And if I do, who's going to help me? Then I thought I have only one life. It's okay, let's try. If I fail, it's so. What's the big deal? And I wasn't even sure, by the way, that I would get the ticket for the party. And it was November when I became president, and elections were in April. So I had only 5 months left. Tried to do both. Fortunately, I did get the ticket. I did contest. That is an experience for another day. But it was a very, very good experience. I got the ticket about 20 days to election. Really scrambled to make everything happen. We had about 1.8 million, 18 lakh voters in Visakhapatnam. And imagine, in 20 days, how many people can you cover? It's like we can do the best we can. And at the end of that, once the polling was done, April 11th, we had almost a month and a half before results were released, and everyone around me was so tensed about what the result was going to be, but I was very relaxed. It was like, whatever I have to do is done. Now God will decide whether I will win or not. I lost. Counting day was another special experience, because by 11 a.m. it was clear that our party lost. They started counting at maybe 7 or 8. And mine was the only thing that we were giving a fight. So mine was like that movie where the climax goes on for like 1 hour. So starting at like 11, 12 in the morning till the early hours, 3 a.m. the next day, about 14, 15 hours, I was just walking between the counting booths, counting everything and everything. Every time with my contestant, I was plus or minus 1,000 votes. In the end, I lost with 4,000 votes. There were about 1.3 million, 13 lakh votes polled in the constituency. So I thought, okay, when the whole party took a drubbing and we won only 3 out of 25, and of the 22 that we lost, I was the closest margin of loss amongst many other political stalwarts. I didn't do too bad. And obviously you feel bad about losing. But in a day, I recovered because I thought that this is what was meant to be. This is the right thing for me. Because I wouldn't have had the time to spend with Geetam, which now in hindsight I can say is actually worked out, because I got to spend quality time with Geetam over the last 3 years, which I might not have gotten had I won. And the last 3 years has been, how do we build a platform for this organization to do good for the country, for our students, for our stakeholders, and transformative work needed to happen. And in parallel with that, when I lost, that's when I met Pratik. And Pratik wanted to help me with my elections. We weren't able to work together for the elections, but once elections were over, results were out, Pratik flew down to Hyderabad and he was like, I want people like you in the parliament. And I said, we'll see, the parliament has some time to go. But in this time, can we do something else for the policy ecosystem? And that's when this idea of Kautilya came to be. Where it was, can we impact this space from a different direction, maybe not in the short term, but develop talent who can go into the policy ecosystem, whether it be through politics or civil service, research, think tanks, who will lead to a much better level of debate, who will lead to creating professionals, creating individuals who will lead to building a better India. So that was the broad idea. And it shaped, and fortunately, Pratik went to Harvard and he was at the Kennedy School, so at least there was some structure that he had in his mind. So we took that as an inspiration and we began about 2.5 years ago. Pratik, 2.5 or 2.5? And now we're here. I think given the pandemic, we would not have expected that we would have had 50 students sitting in front of us. So I think great job to the team. And I want to thank each of you who has made this choice to come here to a new School of Public Policy, placing your faith and trust with us. Because it's like entrepreneurship, right? The ones who take the risk early are the ones who get the highest reward. And I look at all of you as entrepreneurs. Because you did something that many others may not have. Taking a risk, going to a new institution, new school of policy, policy education in the country in itself is at a very nascent stage. There is no proof of concept. But there is around the world, not in India yet. So I'll come back to the School of Policy. So at the university, it's been about 3 years. And just imagine, put yourself in my shoes. It was 23,000 students, about 1,500 faculty. When I became president in 2018, I was 29 years old. And all of the leaders were a good 30 years older to me. And I've never led an organization, right? So until I became the head of this, everything was just theory. Saying that, okay, this guy has a good idea, but can he actually translate it into leadership, management, decision making? And how did I do what I did? I mean, I've been in here 3 years, university hasn't collapsed, so I'm assuming that I've been doing a decent job. How have I been able to do this? It's not because I'm super intelligent or anything of that sort. In fact, when I went to Stanford, we have a class of 400 students. Average GMAT is 730, 740. Everyone has about 4 or 5 years of work experience. Median GPA in their undergrad is about 3.8, 3.9. So by all means, superstars, right? And everyone has something that they called over there the duck syndrome. How many of you have heard about the duck syndrome? Anyone? No? So have anyone seen ducks moving around in the lakes, ponds? Yes? How are the ducks? What? Yeah. So Joel is our director of student life, so he's cheating by, I was expecting a student to give the answer, but so the duck syndrome is basically the duck above the water seems very calm and graceful, and it's like it's really gliding through the water. But what you don't realize is under the water, it's really like splashing away really, really hard. But that struggle nobody sees. And everyone at Stanford had this imposter syndrome that I don't belong. I had it too for 3 months because there were some really, really intelligent people like things. But after some time when things settled down, what I saw was out of the 400 classmates, maybe there were 40 or 60 really like geniuses and whiz kids and people that you really like dream of. But the remaining like 340, 360 students were intelligent and more or less like me. And I think what set them apart from anyone else that I've seen in the rest of the world or rest of my life is that their attitude, their values, their resilience, their clarity of vision, their hard work. I think that's what set them apart. Intelligence, not so much. I think there were many other people who got 740 or 750 on GMAT and didn't get into Stanford. But what I could see very clearly was that passion that they had in themselves as an individual. So when I came back here and I'm leading this university and you're faced with difficult decisions from the beginning, because my journey right now, 9 years as a board member, has been that Indian academia has not adopted to what is needed to be competitive on the global scale. COVID has been a disruptor even more so. I think many of our faculty members are here. They are also dealing with that. We suddenly have to go online. We haven't been used to teaching online. And typically, academia in India is instruction. The faculty member knows, and then they teach the student what they know. But in today's information era, everything is available on Google. And in an online format, unlike the classroom, the student can just switch off the video and say that I don't have internet. And there is no way to work around that. And we don't know whether they're listening or not. In fact, even here when I'm talking, I'm sure there's half of you who aren't listening, right? That's how human attention span is. So how do we deal with this? And we realize now that instruction is not the way forward. It has to be interactive. It has to be engaging. And does the Indian university have the DNA to actually meet those needs? 99% no. What it has to change, I wouldn't say the DNA. The operational standards today, 99% no. So we need to change that. If we need to change that, huge cultural transformation is needed. But if you're starting a new project like how we're doing with you in Kautilya, we recruit a new team, new ideology, everybody is in sync with it, that's okay. But in Geetam, there are people who've been here with us 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, who know one way of teaching, one way of living. And I suddenly come and pull the carpet under their legs and say, this is not it, you need to be different. It's not going to be easy. Especially as you grow older, you can't adapt to the changes that are around us as easily. So I think what helped me whenever I'm faced with the challenge, whenever I'm faced with the difficulty, is always some word of advice some decision that I saw my grandfather or my uncle or my father taking. I've been very, very fortunate, very privileged to have the kind of mentorship, the kind of support, the kind of financial security that I've had all my life that has helped me become who I am. So, Dr. K.S. Rao, my mother's father, when he was a member of parliament, when I was between 2004 to 14, he made it a point that every time I went there, he used to take me to whoever he's meeting. So within the UPA too, I don't know if you remember those names, all of the leaders I have met one-on-one with my grandfather. Sonia Gandhi, Manmohan Singh, Pranab Mukherjee, A.K. Anthony, P. Chidambaram. Chidambaram is expected to come and speak to us. And after that meeting is over, once we stepped out, my granddad used to tell me that he is just a human being. He is not some god or something like that. And he has strengths and weaknesses. There's nothing for you to be afraid about. And he didn't say this once. He said this every single time. So it really boosted my confidence because earlier, now you meet a movie star or you meet a big politician, you start becoming nervous, right? When you're in their company. And you don't know how to act, what to say. But for me, when I meet most of these people, it's like this one other human being. And that confidence I wouldn't have gotten myself. Because that's not how society is. But those were the things that I was given. So when we are establishing the school of policy, the idea beyond the education, beyond the knowledge, is that you all, close to 50, are given that exposure, are given that confidence, are given those values that will shape who you are as individuals at the end of this journey. Because intelligence is not going to set you apart. There's a lot of people who are intelligent. And believe me, today, whenever we're recruiting for faculty or talent or leaders, our challenge is not to find people who are intelligent. More often than not, we're able to find that. What is extremely hard, it's like finding a needle in the haystack, is people who have the right value system, who have ownership, who have courage, who have resilience, who have generosity, who have integrity. Very, very, very hard. At the end of these 2 years, if each of you can walk away with those values, I'm not worried about anything else. But do you desire those? That is a question mark. If you desire them, then working on giving you the exposure is our responsibility. And coming to this education itself, do we know exactly what to teach you? No. Are we like really experts in policy? No. I mean, obviously, Pratik and I are 30 years old. It's not like we've done research in this area for 30 years. What we do know is what are the values we care about. And that's something that we debate about often. And what we do know is that if something is going wrong, we will acknowledge it. The problem with Indian academia is that the attitude has always been that I know and you should learn. I don't want that to be the case with our school. We don't know everything. The reason we brought you all here is because we will learn from you. We will, being the founding cohort, you will help shape how the school is built. You will ask us difficult questions. You will care about the education, the experience. And now, all of you are in the hostel. How many of you are in the hostel? Can you raise your hands? Is it good? It costs us a lot of money. The hostel building and the campus. Money that the other faculty and leaders here are not very happy about. Right? Because their classrooms and their hostels are not like that. Why did we do this? Especially when you are in the field of policy where you're expected to go work in probably remote areas where this kind of life is not going to be there. It is not that we want you to become people who always are used to only comfort and you want to live like that. But it is that when you have access to this, you should strive to provide this for every individual that you touch in your life. And our role is to give you a nurturing ecosystem where you're able to learn from each other, learn from the faculty, learn from the speakers who come and speak to you over the next 5 days and over the next 2 years that you are here with us. Your role is to take all of this and not lose yourself. Not become too comfortable. When I went and studied in the US, Simple things. Both in Purdue and in Stanford. I go to the bathroom, I open the tap, hot water comes in like 2 seconds. How many of you have that experience in India? Not in Kautilya. I don't know if we have that there. How many of you have that experience? I don't, by the way. I take about 5 minutes now to get hot water in my house. No one? Electricity, we take it for granted. These things don't exist in many parts of the country. And if we don't provide that, and I'm talking about rural areas, Purdue is a small town in Indiana. I'm not talking about New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. So we need to build this for the country. And if that needs to be done, you first need to know what is the limit to which you can imagine. So if we give you global exposure, we give you high quality living standards, you understand that this is possible for others. You understand that you can strive to build this for others. And you value it, you respect it. That's what we want from you all. And Kautilya is just the beginning. Because it's a greenfield project, it's a blank canvas and we're able to draw what we want on it. But Geetham is not going to be far behind. It is an entity that is existing, but we are working towards transforming everything in Geetham also, in the same way. I think the proudest thing for us today or 2 years later is the badge of pride, badge of honor that you wear, and that distinguishes you from everybody else in society. Not again, like I said, because of your success or your badges of honor, but because of who you are as a person. That's the most important thing to me and to us. We live in a world of differences of opinion, political preferences, even actor preferences, right? People fight over which actor they like. When you walk away here, we have a group of, like I said, there was a map here earlier, 17 or 18 states represented. People with diverse viewpoints, diverse experiences. If we can walk away with trust and respect, we agree to disagree. There is no right or wrong. Everything is gray. And I will learn from you. If I don't learn from you, I will at least listen to you. If those things we don't take away, then we'll be doing disservice to Kautilya and we'll only be contributing to the already existing problems that are there in society. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And I'll pause here. I don't know how much time I've spent. Monica, how are we on time? How much time did I speak? No. How much is it? Sorry. Yeah, no, 20 is too kind. Okay, I'm done here. Thank you all for listening patiently. I hope I didn't bore you.
Thank you so much.
It's a person in the back. If any of
you
the
so
students
much,
or
Mr.
anyone else
Bharat.
here has any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Do we have the mics available? They'll be getting your mic, but you can go ahead in the meanwhile.
There is a policymaker which is coming at bottom up.
Can you
So-
put the mic closer to yourself?
Hello. Yeah, so the bottom-up approach is that people is coming from the simples and how they will face the problems and solve. The confident level of the top-downs, you are very high actually. You tell that one word that what you learned from that your grandfather, that politicians are not that thing, they're simple persons. So that ideology is inside. And if you see that the Netaji and Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi was that top, it is at bottom up, and that Netaji was the top downs actually. He was very confident and to dominate the something. So what is your prospect actually? Because same things also that is asked that the Rabindranath Tagore that he is born in that family, and when he is writing that pain of that simple peoples, he was asked that you are born in that spoon of that goldens, and how you write this to the common people. He told all the simple things. that to know the flower is not required to born in this insect. So if you love, if you come, you can do it. So here the policy maker, that simple family or simple background, how they can do, because that is the most important to challenge and to solve the problem. What is your view of the problem?
I still didn't understand your question. Are you saying that how do you relate to it if you're not born in it?
No. I'm asking the question that from the simple background, how the people will build up that confidence to dominate that or take the challenge to solve the problem.
Right. So I think I shared real life examples of my own family where both grandfathers came from very simple backgrounds. Lower middle class farmers with single parents, first college educated. How did they dream, right? Out of the many other people that existed, maybe at the time that they were born, there were 40, 50 crore people living in India. Why did they dream that they want to be a businessman and want to be a politician? Something was there, right?
Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, so that's what we want to create here in the School of Policy.
Yeah.
Give you that access to people who will inspire you, give you confidence, give you support. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, yeah, I understood that. You are telling the story that I have understood it. But what is your, how the people will, the simple family and simple way, you are telling the story is fine. But I think that is a very nice examples you are giving. That is, yeah, you are right.
Okay,
thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Normally when I'm sitting with Geetam students, I always have this, that I have to really goad them into asking me questions. Kautilya, I expect you to be more aggressive and ask me difficult questions.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, sir. My name is Mayank Gupta.
Meher Gupta.
Mayank
Gupta. Hi, Mayank.
Thank you for the setup. Thank you for Kautilya.
Yeah, just keep it close to yourself and you should be good.
So I just wanted to know what would be the reaction of Mr. Murthy if he was alive today and he would have seen Kautilya coming to shape. What do you think? How would he react?
I don't know. So I want to say that he would be very happy and proud. When I'm faced with a difficult decision or circumstance, thinking of him actually gives me courage, because he did a lot of things that others wouldn't have done. Right? So with the School of Policy, or basically in terms of any transformative decision, you have to also look at the journey of every individual. My own grandfather, who he was at the age of 35, 40, is very different from who he is right now or at the time when he was 75 or 80. Right? With age, you start carrying baggage. You start becoming more risk averse because you have more things that you care for. When you're young, when you're 35, 40, like there's not so many things. I have not seen enough battle scars for me to start getting worried. Right? At his age, after seeing many setbacks, he used to worry about me. He used to be like, don't be so risk-taking. Be a little bit more careful. But I'm not. I'm taking more risks than he would have allowed me to. So I want to say that the end result would definitely have made him proud. Hi. This is my son, Aryavir. Arya, el కూర్చో కిందకి వెళ్ళి కూర్చో హాయ్ చెప్పు అందరికి హాయ్ చెప్పు
హాయ్
సరే go. So I think he would have been definitely happy about where we are reaching, but the path, we would have had a lot of debate on how we should do it. Yeah. Thank you. The questions are not limited to the students, faculty are welcome to ask questions also. All you need to do is raise your hands. Anyone? Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's switched on. Just
Hello.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Just keep it close.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for that wonderful talk. I am Aloy. I am a part of the inaugural cohort of Kautilya. So my question is simple. I mean, since Geetam is, of course, a private institution, public policy requires constant and continued engagement with the state as well. So what would be the kind of engagement with state institutions that you envision for Kautilya over the next coming years?
Right. So we're not limited to, while we are located in Hyderabad, we're not limited to engaging only with the state of Telangana, right? We can engage with any state.
Yeah.
And fortunately for us, we are in a country with many states. You can just put it in put it in the front. We have 29 states, and there are some states that will be progressive and that want to engage with policy institutions. There are some states who will be progressive for some time under certain leadership and will not be under some other leadership. So that way, I don't think we can predict who will engage with us where, but what we have seen now is once the talent and capability exists, automatically the governments will start working with you. Even if you look at the think tanks that exist today, the policy institutions, the individual researchers, economists, governments are engaging with them. It depends on their desire. So now, after COVID, after maybe 18 months, economy is in a bad shape, and there are challenges that are coming up, and there are particular challenges, let us say, with child education, right? A lot of children are at home. So the challenges of not going to school is not just that they won't get education, it's also nutrition, it is safety, so many challenges, right? And what is a policy solution for that? And if there is some, and Pratik is working in an NGO that is educate girls and who have insights and who have data on how to deal with this challenge, then the government will automatically call them, and I think they already have, right? How many governments are you working with now? 4 governments. So when the problem exists and we have a population that is demanding and the leaders in power realize that they're not able to do it themselves, they will look out seeking for help. But when they do, you should be able to project that trust, that confidence that you can actually solve their problem or give them insights into that problem. And that's our role. We'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi.
Namaskaram. I'm Poonam. I'm student at Kautilya.
Yeah, hi Poonam.
You concentrated on value system when you were selecting the students. And you also talk about the ambition of taking your legacy forward, or I may say, entering politics. And we are coming up with a vision of policy making. Do you really think, in the times that we really are in, that people with real good value system would really will be able to strike a difference or make it up there, because it's not a very easy world and it's not a very a very good world out there, because maybe it's easy to think of a solution, but application of solution is something which we are lacking in our country. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very good question. So definitely, I think it's extremely challenging. It's very easy to be idealistic, utopian. Reality is not like that. Is this talk recorded, Monica? Okay. So I just have to be restricted in my response. See, my wife who just came here, her sister is married to married to the then Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, and his son Lokesh was a minister in the cabinet. They are married to the son. Yeah, sorry. So Brahmini, my sister-in-law, is married to Lokesh. Lokesh was a minister. He's the son of the chief minister. So what is the perception of me when I'm married into that family? Is that this guy got an MP ticket almost 1 year ago and everything is guaranteed. The truth of the thing is, until 20 days till the elections, I didn't know whether I would get the ticket. And this is me with all these family connections and my own family background. And I can imagine when someone who doesn't have any of this, how much more harder it is to just merely get entry. Right? It's not even about getting a ticket, getting even a party position. The challenge is not about that. The challenge is not, will I succeed or will I have a very predictable path? You won't. In politics, I don't think that's how it works. But the point is that not everyone has to get into politics. What I'm trying to say is that today, from my perspective, if I want to, let us say I'm in politics now, I want to look for a leader who can work with me. I'm not able to find one person who is able to inspire me with their values. And it's because they've all been a part of the system that they've abused the system has abused them. They've lost a sense of identity. And they're doing whatever they think is necessary to survive or to thrive. And they've lost their self. And ultimately it's going to hurt them. Because today, when I'm searching for a person and if I can't find it, I won't be able to help anyone, right? So let us say that as a member of parliament, I want to recommend someone for the MLA ticket in one of my 7 constituencies. I'm not able to find one person that I really like. So there is a supply problem also. So it's not like political parties are not looking for good people. We are. But the thing is, in the process of you trying to make it, if you lose yourself, then by the time the opportunity comes, you will not be fit for it. So that's what you need to realize, that you will not get the result today, tomorrow, there's no predictability to it. But if you lose yourself, you may forever write off your chances. And when it comes to maybe some other things like business or otherwise, definitely even in those domains, it's extremely challenging to succeed. The odds are not stacked for you, they're stacked against you. But I'll give you an example of a good friend of mine. His name is Nirmit, comes from a middle class background, studied with me at Stanford. He's from Gujarat. Serial entrepreneur, went to a decent engineering college, but not an NIT, IIT, or not even the best college in his city. And by the time he came to Stanford, he started 2 startups and had sold them for a couple of $1 million. And if you actually look into it, there's no such background that he had that made him who he was. But he was an extremely nice person during business school and one of my closest friends. He graduated, he moved back, he said, I want to do something for India. He started his company 2 years ago. It's called Apna. Apna is like LinkedIn for the blue collar workforce. It's helping people who don't have access to a smartphone, who don't know how to write a resume, start getting job offers, right? It has now facilitated, I think, almost 15 million job interviews over the last 20 months and is now worth close to $600 million, which is about 4,000 crores in a matter of 19 months. And my family, after having worked for 30 years, has not built that much net worth, right? So how did he do it? If he thought that the world is wrong and I need to do something in the shortcut to succeed, then we would not have had an Apna and Nirmit Parikh today. But we got it because he believed in the power of good and he believed that I will do something that will help people, and he was able to do it. So the thing is, the world will send you a lot of noise and very little signal. The noise will confuse you. It will make you believe many things. But if you get lost by that, your outcomes are going to be subpar. If you can listen to the signal, I think you will really, sky's the limit. And there's no price for good values and a good mind. I hope I've answered your question. Yeah. I'll take one last question and then I'll close. Okay, we didn't ask a single faculty member, so we'll ask and we'll come back. Or maybe we did.
I'm Venkat Nagendra, Assistant Professor of Chemistry.
Yeah.
So, any policy by the amendment done by the floor of the government, so this policy when it goes into the out, that is for the betterment of the society. Certain policies, though they are amended, sometimes we observe that the violation of the policies. And second thing
Violation of the policy in
means
implementation.
they are not implementation, overlooked. Sometimes I think that certain policies need to be closed at some times of the instance, depending upon the requirement. So such policies are not at all done. I don't want to point out what those policies are there still. We're celebrating 75 years of independent India. Still few policies not required, which are amended at the beginning of the 1947-48. They're not closed. So how can we address these problems and who can overcome those policies? Thank you, sir.
Right. We have a few policymakers. We have, where's Professor Rajiv Gowda is here? I think he just stepped out. He's a Rajya Sabha member. So I think when it comes to policy and my own experience is that policy is a little bit like superstition or even Vastu, astrology. It was written 2,000-3,000 years ago with good intention. But now they'll say me that you have to, when you're sitting on the toilet, you have to be facing this side. Right? Is it good? Is it not? I don't know. But that's the rule. And you want to change it. The problem is when making a rule, motivations are a certain way. When changing it, the motivations are a different way. Because we live in a democracy. If I suppose were to say that I will give you free education to the state of Andhra Pradesh, when giving it, everyone will receive it with open hands. But suddenly I say that this is not economically viable for the state. And this is killing the quality of education. Will the voters allow the government to take it back? The individual will not. They will vote against it. So the incentivization for someone in power is to be in power, and they will do what will keep them in power. If they don't do that, then it will become like dictatorship, right? So these are challenges. Sometimes what will happen is people who get elected into power have to let go of that belief that I need to come back into power and do what they think is right for the economy or for the state, and then policy making is easy. Because in our state, in Andhra Pradesh, 150 out of 175 the ruling government has won. They can change any law they want within the state. And even at the center, it's not a coalition government, it's a pure government. It's also priorities, it's time, it's leadership. There's so many challenges that are there in policy making, and oftentimes what happens is people who are empowered to write policy don't know much about it, and the people who write policy don't think about all of the perspectives that are necessary. For example, civil servants, the way I look at it, the way I believe, ministers are empowered to think and write policy. Civil servants are the ones who should implement the policy. But unfortunately, what's happening today, it's the other way around. So that changing that will require a lot of effort, because in the US, for example, when it's a presidential election, the president wins on the people's mandate. And once the president wins, he or she does not have any obligations and can pick anybody as their minister. So even people who are not from politics, he can nominate, say, come and lead this because you're an expert in this domain. But when it's through electoral politics, like parliamentary elections, I'm coming through my members of parliament. And my members of parliament have voted me to become the prime minister. So if I don't give them a ministry, tomorrow they'll kick me out. So out of the 300 that I win, I hope that at least I have 40 or 50 capable, competent members of parliament. But on the flip side, if they're too competent, I'm worried that they will overthrow me. So it's a very complicated thing. So you want the person to be good enough so that people will be happy and you'll come back into power, but not so good that people will think that person is better than you. And the minute you become insecure, even the slight indication of competence, you will not let that person perform. So then what happens is the people who are deciding on policy are not competent or equipped or motivated to think in the long-term and larger interest of society. And that's what we hope that these individuals over here, when they get into that domain, are able to transcend. So I'll come back to one student, and sir, the faculty is in Sarkota. Yeah, there's one student there in the back, and we'll close after that.
Hi Bharat, I'm Trilok. I'm alumni of Geetham.
Yeah, hi Trilok. Are you the only alumni of Geetham?
There's another guy from Vizag.
Great.
So
Glad to
Bharat,
see you both.
my question to you is, why are you just running for parliament elections? Why not the state legislative assembly? So I think, doers like you, we need in state cabinets. So why?
So I think the way politics is working today in our state, in many other states, is that MLA aspirants and MLAs have become like kings of their kingdom. And people's expectations also have become very high. Particularly in rural areas, because in urban areas at least there's someone like a corporator who's elected. In rural areas, if there is a marital dispute, or if the light is not working in the house, or if somebody's bike is broken, they'll call up the MLA and say, hey, please help me. So the barrage of calls that will come on a daily basis is something that I cannot deal with. And I'm interested in thinking of issues that impact lakhs or millions of people. So I like thinking about policy, I like thinking about institution building. But the MLA has become very much about servicing the individual. And I'm not very happy doing that. Because what will happen is there'll be 1,000 constituents who want jobs, 1,000 constituents who want a promotion in their existing job, and all my role will be to be a postman. And whether I'm an MP or an MLA, it doesn't make a difference, because whether it's a regional party or today national party, member of parliament's role in policy making or decision making is very limited. There's a very small group of people at the top who control the narrative and decision making, and you are just supposed to be implementing what is told to you. So between the two, I'm not saying that I love one over the other. Between the two, I prefer the member of parliament, because at least I won't have this daily harassment. And at least when you go to Delhi, to some extent, the level of debate and the kind of people that you interact with intellectually will be more stimulating than what it is at the state level. Now you're talking about impact. If I'm here as an MLA, maybe I can have more impact, or if tomorrow if I become a minister within the cabinet, all of that depends on the leader. If the leader wants to empower me, even without a position, I can do work. If the leader doesn't want to empower me, I can be a number 2 cabinet minister and just be going for photo openings and ribbon cuttings, and that's it. So it makes a lot of difference. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for listening patiently and asking me questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bharat. And now we have Professor N. Shiva Prasad, the Pro Vice Chancellor of Geetam, Hyderabad. He is an engineer, an academician, and a researcher par excellence. He is also a published writer, product designer with 4 patents in his name, a member of many national committees appointed by AICTE, UGC, and the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Pro VC, Mr. N. Shiva Prasad.
Good morning to all of you. I am deviating from the text what I have prepared, going into the extempore rather than following what I thought of after listening to Mr. Bharat. A good thing is there, want a change, be the change. India got the independence 75 years ago. All the country wanted to have a change, starting from Gandhiji, Nehruji, etc. If you look at the first few years, maybe up to 14, when the Modi ji is elected as the Prime Minister, the Nehruian policies were followed in the country. What are the policies? He adopted a way the Soviet Union has adapted for its development. Any development of an organization or the country has to go with the policy and the planning. That gives me what is the policy and what is the planning. The way your actions are there, and that is a policy, and how you implement will come into the planning. So if you take it first 5-year plan, in 51, we were about 36 crores of people. There was a food shortage even for the country. People have given a thought how to self-sustain in the food. That is how the focus was given on
Happy Independence Day to all of you. Can you hear me? I've been on many stages, but this is really big. You know, all of you have been discussing a lot of interesting things. So let me start with what all of young people discuss when they meet from different professions. And this is an anecdote which refers to different professions. Here we have people who are engineers, doctors, architects, also lawyers, and yeah, there is a civil servant like me. So let me start. So when there is a conversation on all these, usually the conversation on first day starts, who was first? So the doctor says, first there was chaos, and then God was a doctor, because he created first there was chaos, he created the world, and then from Adam's rib he created Eve, so he is a doctor. So the engineer says, wait, first there was chaos, right, but then God engineered the world, so he was first an engineer. The architect says, sorry, first there was chaos and then God designed the world. So architect was the first profession. The lawyer looks around and says, sorry, first there was chaos and then God laid down the law and everything followed the law. So he was a lawyer. So there's this civil servant. He laughs and he says, you guys, all of you have one thing in common. We all agreed first there was chaos. Who created that chaos? The civil servant. So let's start. So the inaugural cohort are the butterflies. Guys, we know what is chaos. We know the civil servant. We know the problems of the world. But all of us need to know, who are you? I know some of you have introduced yourself, but let's introduce you to the rest of us. So let's see, who are you? You know, there were some states which were green. For that, they marked specifically green because Pratik Kanwal has designated them as greenfield areas where Geetam is going next. The rest of the states are where you come from. Greenfield is where we target the next batch. Now we know who you are and we know what you're going to study. I want to tell you some stories and test you because I'm now going to be the teacher. So let me test you. Stop using your mobile phones. Who is she? Quick. 1, 2, 3. You can't answer. Next hint. Next. Who is she? 2, 3. Can't. One more. Who is she? 1, 2, 3. Sorry. All have failed. She is one of my heroes. And I'll tell you why she is the hero. You'll just see.
At the outset, the United States and France, they place a strong emphasis on earlier notions of the rights of man articulated in their respective constitutions. India sends a delegate to the Commission on Human Rights famous for having presented the national flag that same year on behalf of the women of India, Hansa Mehta. Eleanor Roosevelt has not reacted to the use of rights of man in the initial drafts, which is now brought to debate by Hansa Mehta. The preamble of the first draft reads, quote, "The General Assembly," and this might have been your preamble, "recognizing the fact that the United Nations has been established for the specific purpose of enthroning the natural rights of man, to freedom and equality before the law, and for upholding the worth and dignity of human personality." End quote. Hansa Mehta, the only female delegate in the Commission on Human Rights besides Eleanor Roosevelt, objects to the use of man in the draft, arguing that member states can use this to restrict women's rights rather than expand them, since women are not necessarily regarded as included by that wording.
The world can thank a daughter of India, Dr. Hansa Mehta, for replacing the phrase in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It said all men are born free and equal. Now it's changed. All human beings are born free and equal.
So this is a demure woman who looks very traditional in her attitude. But look what she did. She took on two of the biggest countries in the world and challenged their constitutions. The French Declaration of Rights, the US Constitution has in their thing, all men are born free and equal. Hansa Mehta, look at her, a traditional looking Indian woman, goes on a world platform and questions everybody saying, no, change it from man to change it to human beings. She got it right. She got the theory right. What we got wrong was all of you don't even know about her. That's what public policy is all about. Get the theory right is nothing. We need to get the theory right. We need to get practice right. You know, my father was a professor of journalism, and he always used to tell me this example. He said, do you know how many eggs does the eel lay? I said, no. He said, thousands, tens of thousands together. I said, right. Then he says, how many eggs does the hen lay? One at a time. Yet, when the hen lays the egg, it goes about saying, kak, 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 kak. All of you know about it. When the eel lays thousands and millions of eggs, nobody knows about it. You got it wrong in not absorbing that theory, not internalizing it, not propagating it, and so the West took it. So public policy is not about getting the policy. We got the policy right well long ago, 1948, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was started. Yet, neither in our country nor globally are we able to stand up for what she said. So just remember, I come from a diplomatic background, so I'm using examples of diplomacy. But I'm certain all of you have such examples galore. It's a simple way of looking at public policy. If you get the theory right, doesn't mean it works. 70 years later, we will understand that it doesn't. The West has appropriated Hansa Mehta and our values. We pushed it. She took on Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of the President of the USA, who was the only other woman. So, just remember, I will take you to the next. I hope you get this right because it's a male, a macho male. You couldn't get the traditional woman right. Hope you get this hero right. Second, who is he? 1, 2, 3. Change. Who is he? Yes, hold on. Sorry, wrong. Next. 1, 2, 3. You didn't get it right. Okay, start.
somehow उनको इंडियन मेडिसिन पे बहुत ज़्यादा फेथ है.
The contribution you have made to inspiring Liberian women, for that we will always be grateful.
In all these conflicts, Indian soldiers have distinguished themselves through discipline, training and professionalism.
As a matter of fact, India has always been one of the largest peacekeeping countries. And today, 7,700 Indian peacekeepers are deployed around the world. And Indian women formed the first ever all-female Indian police unit, which was deployed in Liberia. You have indeed given a very strong contribution to global solidarity and to the international peace and security. And a total of 163 Indian peacekeepers, the highest number of all two continental countries, as you mentioned, Ambassador, have given their lives for peace.
That the people of India has contributed indeed to the freedom, peace of the people of South Sudan.
Captain Salaria is the only Indian ever awarded the Paramveer Chakra for bravery outside India's borders. Yet, none of us knows about. He is the Indian who ensured that the notion of protection of civilians comes into the doctrine of global peacekeeping. Before that, peacekeepers were only ensuring protection of themselves, their various resources, etc. In 1961, Captain Salaria in Congo started that notion. We honored him with the Paramveer Chakra for his exploits. We did not create the theory which ensured longevity. The Americans then took that up, decided to come with a concept of protection of civilians, and today every peacekeeping operation has the concept of protection of civilians. What did we get right here and what didn't we get right? We got the practice right, we didn't create the theory. So here you have two separate examples. You can get the theory right, not enshrine it into practice. You can get the practice right and not make a theory out of it. Both cases, and in both cases, them was regarded as a hero of their times. Yet, we know, if you look at United Nations now or global India diplomat, woman, you may think of Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. That's about all you will think. We've forgotten about the most important contribution India has ever made to global international relations, Hansa Mehta. We've forgotten a hero who we gave a Paramveer Chakra because we are not enshrining practice into theory, theory into practice. Public policy is to harmonize these. All of us think public policy is about governance. People without public policy is nothing. Public policy without government is nothing. We may not like the government. We may have a distaste for it. There is no governance without government. Whether government at the local level or at the regional level, at the national level, at the global level. Of course, there are other stakeholders, and we can list all of them. But remember, whether for good or for bad, governance includes government. They can be government of various sorts, but it has to. The second point, of course, is public policy about theory and practice. We've just said it. Now, I'd just like you to forget what I said and take a deep breath. Now tell me or visualize for yourself what is public policy and what will be public policy learning like. You think of an image. This is the first test for all of you. You failed the quiz. This is going to be a written test. So, I want all of you to visualize and submit on the 23rd. You have 8 days. On Monday the 23rd, we will check what is your visualization of public policy. What is public policy like? What is learning public policy like? I want a vision. Nothing. Very much a photo, 50 words. I give you if you want to write 75. Not more than 100 words. So I thought of one to give you an example so that it will help you to work on the assignment that I am giving you. This is what it is for me. It's like a boat on the high seas, and all of you have been tasked to repair that boat. Try repairing a boat. We have a rear admiral here who can tell you that repairing a boat in the dock is a huge issue. Repairing the boat on the high seas is perhaps the most difficult thing because there are 1,000 parts to handle and you are all on your own. That's my vision of what learning and explaining public policy is and what public policy itself is. Because you heard how difficult it is. And I've given you enough example to say nobody gets it 100% right. So don't worry. None of you will get 100%. None of us has ever got 100%. But we want you to aim and strive towards that. And that's the goal with which Kautilya is approaching you. So don't forget the assignment. Monday, 23rd August. Photo and a small write-up. Thank you very much for being very patient with me.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We request you to please come along with us for lunch. We break for lunch right now. Thank you so much.